Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Cricket on Forever Sports. And Pakistan have just beaten South Africa by 4 wickets in the first T20 of the 3-match series. A very interesting game, and a game which I think South Africa will be very, and rightfully so, frustrated, because it was a game that, despite 3 debutants and it doesn't get more second string than the current South African side, in that I genuinely don't think more than 1 or 2 players that play today actually get into South Africa's best 11 if all players are available. Still managed to push Pakistan right to the end. And I think, a game which they should have won, and we're probably 10 runs too short. And I said it on Twitter at the time. I said that given the start that South Africa had, given the runs scored by Klaasen and Markham, it was criminal by South Africa to not get to that 200 mark. That extra 12 runs, it might not sound like much, but the mental thing of having to go out and chase down 200 runs is completely different to chasing down 188. If you've played cricket, you understand how much there are just, certain targets are like trigger words, and that's why we judge batsmen on hundreds, not 99s, not 98s, not 90s. We judge them on hundreds, same as we judge them on 50s, not 45s, not 46s. Somebody can average, 45, have 200s, somebody can average, 38 and have 600s. And generally people will often say the person with 600s is a better player because you can go on and capitalize, so it's weird. So it's just those sort of small mind games. And I think that having the extra 12 runs, going out and saying, go out and score 200 against us, it just shifts the mindset very much. And I think that was probably one of the biggest issues. Of course, you can look at the bowling and say that it was pretty poor. And I think it was poor, but it was such an inexperienced bowling attack that it was fairly inevitable, really. Before we break the game down, though, please do subscribe to the channel, smash like on the video as well. Right, so if you look at the South African side, 3 debutants, Sasanda Magala, Lizard Williams and Vian Lover, all very much deserved. I would have liked to have seen Miguel Pretorius getting a chance. I think he's a very good player, or can also contribute with a little bit back. And I was a bit surprised to see George Linde and Shamsi playing in the high fall. I'm not quite convinced we needed 2 spinners in a pitch which is very seam friendly. Look, in T20 cricket, you are tending to see 2 spinners being used a lot more. But I think given the conditions of the high fault, probably an area where maybe it was a little bit unnecessary. Look, it was always going to be a very tough tour. We are missing 10 players, basically. And I'm talking about 10 players without the likes of Navy de Villiers, Chris Morris, Imran Tahir. All those sort of players were kind of on the periphery, not really part of the setup. No Temba Buma, no Rassie van der Dussen, no Reza Hendricks, no Dwayne Pretorius due to injury unavailable, as well as the 6 players in the IPL. It was always going to be a tough tour. So Klaasen won the toss and he decided to bat and got off to a really good start. Janneman Malan looks made for international cricket. He really does. He only scored 24 today, but a strike rate of 150 and got off to such a nice start. And that's what's quite important when it comes to T20 cricket, is that it's not always about scoring necessarily big individually and not necessarily all about averages. It's about team. It's 2 ways. It's 2 ways T20 cricket goes. One person goes big and they can win your game, or several people go fairly small fairly quickly. So when you have knocks of 24 for 150, 34, 24 by Pat for Bunyan, for example, those are very valuable knocks. Just as valuable as a 50 or 38, for example, or 40. Being able to come in and contribute quite quickly is a vital part of T20 cricket. Sasanda Magala and Andile Petlakwa both hit 9 or 5. Now those sort of contributions help at the back end. It adds an extra 18 runs for in 10 balls, which is useful. So Janneman Malan looked very good. And Aiden Markham, 51 and 32, a strike rate of 159, 8 fours, 1 6, looked at his best. He really does. And that's why he gets backed so much. Because when he plays well, he looks like such a good cricketer. Probably the best talent, I would say, in terms of the way he bats, since the likes of an A.B. de Villiers. Obviously we've got Quinton de Kock and stuff like that. But just in terms of a textbook action, since the de Villiers, the du Plessis, even de Kock, I think we're probably more sort of that era, and the Amlas. Since that sort of era, Aiden Markham is probably the most talented cricketer we've had come through, but hasn't necessarily delivered the numbers his talent deserve or should be, really. Vian Lover, very tough debut for him. Dropped a vital catch in the last over. He scored 4 3, came and hit a beautiful 4 with the first ball, and then got done with a slow ball and popped it up. I hope he keeps his place in the next side, because I really don't like it when people get given a debut that have a bad game and they get dropped. I think that just completely decimates their confidence. And then Heinrich Klaasen, for me, under a lot of pressure because he didn't score runs in Pakistan and had a terrible ODI series. And I was quite surprised he got given an ODI, a Proteas contract, especially when the likes of Fat T didn't. He went and scored a brilliant 50 runs off 28 balls, 2 fours, 4 sixes, 178 strike rate, the perfect captain's innings. And it really was setting us up to go for 200. Apart from Billion, chipped in with a decent 34 of 24. For George Linder was very disappointing, 6 of 7. We know he can contribute more with the bat. Pet Lacroix, you can't argue too much, 9 of 5. Right towards the back end. So I think Villanova and George Linder are probably the two you'd probably be the most disappointed with, especially because I think Linder has got the opportunity. He's kind of been back. He's been back to an all-rounder. He's coming in ahead of Pet Lacroix. He's been back to try and finish up a job. And unfortunately, with no sort of Dave Miller, we've got somebody. We need somebody who's going to finish well. In terms of the pick of the bowlers for Pakistan, Mohammad Nawaz was brilliant. 4 overs, 2 for 21, economy of 5.25, bowled 9 dot balls. Very, very good from him. Pretty much the only player who was quite economic. I mean, look, Hassan Ali also bowled very well, 2 for the 28, economy of 7. But after that, it got a bit dirty, to be honest. Fahim Ashraf was the next best economy with 9. Haris Rauf, Usman Khadir, and Afridi all 11 plus economies. So it wasn't a great day for them. But so when South Africa now went to go into field, it was always going to be a tough ask. And I think what's quite important, something that we don't actually, I think about, is I don't think we give Pakistan enough credit for how good they are as cricketers. Because, and I think it's quite an interesting point somebody was making the other day, the Pakistan players do not play in the IPL. And so the only sort of cricket they play when they're in the sort of the cricketing fans' viewpoint, really, is when they play internationals. Not a lot of people outside of sort of Pakistan watch the Pakistan Super League. We've seen a couple of these players in like the Zambia Super Leagues, but we don't really get to see these players. We don't get to see Babar Azam playing all the time. We don't get to see Mohammad Rizwan playing all the time. That top 3 of Rizwan, Azam, Fakhar Zaman, they all get into the IPL if they were in sort of those sort of political issues and which prevent Pakistan players from playing in the IPL. So I think we sort of forget sometimes of how good some of these Pakistan players actually are. Which is why I think there's a reasonable amount of positives in that back of the South African side, which was so second string, managed to push them that far. Babar Azam, 14 or 14. Hendricks got him a good catch from Nazard Williams. That was a brilliant and very important breakthrough. Fakhar Zaman, 27 of 19. Decent striker, but a very important wicket. The biggest problem is Mohammad Rizwan. He just loves playing T20s against South Africa, 74 of 50, a strike rate of 148, 9 fours, 6 sixes, was the anchor. He was an anchor. I mean, it's impressive being an anchor at 148, but there were a lot of very good cameos around him. In the likes of Haider Ali, 14 of 8. Fahim Ashraf, 30 of 14, striker of 214. That wins them the game. Hassan Ali, 9 of 3, a striker of 300. Those sort of small cameos are what really, really win you games. I mean, you think of Pet Lacroix and Magala, if they were to do a Hassan Ali and get, say, 15 or 5, or 12 or 5, or 13 or 5, instead of maybe 9 or 5, it's just those small margins. We're talking about 120 deliveries. There's no time in T20 cricket. There's no extra time. So those sort of cameos are vital. You look at the bowlers for South Africa, and it doesn't make for pretty reading. Tabraiz Shamsi was exemplary. You can't fault his efforts. 2 for 29, 7.25, 9 dot balls, no extras. 1 6 off him, 3 fours hit. He's the number 1 T20 bowler in the world for a reason. And I know that the rankings can sometimes be a little bit skewed, but he really has turned into a really important player for South Africa. And Dila Pet Lacroix, and I said this before, just doesn't look like he's in good enough form at the moment because he hasn't played cricket. 2 overs, none for 21, economy of 10.5 is pretty poor. 2 wides as well to compound that. So I do think, unfortunately, he's on the chopping block. And I think that he's got enough talent. And if you look at the stats and you look at all the all-rounders, he's been one of the better players, It's easy to go and look at sort of say, well, he's not good enough. But he's been one of the better performing all-rounders you actually had in the last few years, which is why he continues to be back. And I think he's got a place, but I think he needs to go back to basics. He needs to go back to domestic level and build up his form, build up his confidence, and come back to the side. You can't play players into form at international level. And unfortunately, not brilliant debuts for Sasanda Magala and Lizard Williams. Magala bowled 3 overs, 0 for 35, an economy of 11.6, 2 wides and a no ball. I mean, he bowled a no ball in his first delivery of the game of his international career and went for 4. So really not the perfect start for him. What was positive, though, I suppose, was in the second last over, bowled 2 balls up front, which went hit for 4. And after that, he suddenly remembered how to bowl a Yorker. And if you've watched domestic cricket, which a lot of people don't, unfortunately, you will know that Sasanda Magala has been one of the best white ball bowlers in the country for a long time. He's been very long overdue this opportunity, and I think he needs to be back. As does Lazard Williams, who bowled 1 for 39, 3.5 overs, an economy of 10. It's not good reading, but I don't like players who get one opportunity and then get dropped. You've got to back them. They've worked so hard to get to this point. They've played so many games to get to this point. You cannot judge them on 3 overs, 4 overs. You know, it's ludicrous. George Linde, 0 for 31, an economy of 10.3. As I said, I'm not quite sure why South Africa are playing a spinner at the Wanderers, a second spinner at the Wanderers. Didn't come off the bat, didn't come off the ball. For me, Vian Mulder coming in, or Miguel Pretorius even if you want to drop Peter Kwai as well, makes the most sense. And then Bjorn Hendricks, 3 for 32, an economy of 8. So statistically, bowled very, very well. Was probably the pick of the bowlers, him and Shamsi. But what I will say is that I do think that South Africa lost the game with that Bjorn Hendricks last over. When he bowled the 18th over and went for 16 runs. And I think that Bjorn Hendricks had to stand up today as the most experienced teamer and had to lead that attack. And his last over went 4-6-4-1-1 dot. 16 runs, and that was it. To give Magala and Lazard Williams both on debut 22 runs to defend was always going to be a big ask. And, Sisala Magala went for 11, and then Lazard Williams went for 11. And there was an overthrow in the last ball, which sort of completely summed up South African cricket at the moment. So it frustrates me because I think Bjorn Hendricks is somebody who's had so many opportunities, and for me, he's just never quite stood up. He's always going to have good games. He's a good cricketer. He is a very good cricketer. Is he international caliber? Is he genuinely a contender to play in a World T20 semi-final? And if he's not, I don't understand why we necessarily always have to back. I think something like Magala, Lazard Williams, we haven't seen what these players can do at international level, because some players are brilliant domestically and can't make the step up. Other players we've actually seen in the past, maybe not brilliant domestically, but solid enough to get an opportunity, and suddenly they fly. Look at David Malan and how he's so good in the England shirt playing for T20, but he struggles to replicate that domestically sometimes. So that's always a bit of an interesting sort of conversation. Overall, disappointing in that South Africa lost the game. Positive, I suppose, in that it is a second string side. As I said, I think only Shamsi gets into the best South African side at the moment. Yeah, I don't want to talk to you too much longer, but thank you very much for watching. Smash a like on the video as well. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what changes you would make for the next game. It was a close match. It was a good match. It was a very watchable game. It was in the second last ball they won the game, so you can't really ask for more than that. Please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven, and I'll chat to you soon.